I had such a great experience. I think one of the things that comes to mind when I reflect on the timing of joining the True You group this round was, for me at this time, it was more of a sense of something stirring, a sense that some time for me would be good, some time to sort of fill my own cup and just having a space to do that. It had been a really busy season leading up. So even the thought of taking the time to invest in myself, part of me was pushing back and saying, like, maybe you don't really have time right now. And I think that is something that is an important message for future me and for other people who might be feeling the same way in the busy world that we're living in. There's always a sense that there's going to be a better time or a better moment to slow down and be with yourself. But in my experience this time, it was such a good investment of time for me, not just for the moments of slowing down and being in the group, which was a gift in and of itself. I really came to look forward to and enjoy our sessions very much. And even though we dug into so many different things and it felt emotional and deep, I always left feeling lighter. So it felt really restful, even though we were getting into a lot of deep stuff. And I think the subconscious part of my mind is still processing, and I notice different things coming up and shifting in my life. So the investment is a gift that keeps on giving. It's like you have the moments of the group themselves, but you also have moments of reflection or things that are sort of shifting underneath the surface that you can't quite quantify, that just continue to percolate and resonate. I'm so glad that I did it. I think the other thing that really resonates is the fact that this is work that happens in a group. I think you can't underestimate the amount of healing benefit in just being seen and held in a community that's safe and supportive. And the facilitators I had were Darek and Alanna, and they did such an amazing job of holding space and setting up the space in a way that felt like there were kind of ground rules of safety. One of the tenets in our group is that no one is here to rescue each other. So we're holding each other without the responsibility of being what anyone needs in that moment. And I found that that was exactly the kind of healing space that also allowed me to show up without fear of burdening other people. It was a sense of freedom. We had a metaphor of kind of placing our rocks in the center. An image that came to mind early on was this sense of kind of tossing our rocks in this lake, and we're kind of gathered in a circle, sitting around low chairs, nice candle lighting. And it felt like we're all throwing our rocks, our burdens into the middle, and the kind of ripple effect of each rock. It's like the rock is on its own individual journey, but the ripple of each one resonates with each other in interesting ways. And you just can't predict how the healing power of someone that you don't know kind of either reflecting back something that you've said that resonates with them, or something surprising that they say that they share at their point in the journey that just hits you in a way that allows you to access a part of yourself that you weren't aware was there and needing tending to. The rock itself then is sort of a gift. It's like the ripple is not a burden, it's a gift. So it sort of reframes these things we think of as being these like heavy burdens or shameful things or just emotions that feel vulnerable or hard to feel ourselves. I think we can get in our heads about that feeling like a burden to other people or a burden to ourselves, and being able to sort of place it in the center and see those ripples as being actually gifts. And I know that because I experienced that gift from other people and them placing their rocks, them having the courage to do that and be seen. I felt that as a gift to me. So there's so many lessons. Like, it's just such a powerful group that's being built on such a foundation of love and support and connection with the earth and with each other and with ourselves. I came to really just love and enjoy getting to know the other group members in this low pressure environment that felt safe and supported. I think on that, the community element of it really felt like a special treat in the times that we're living in. It feels like times are very isolating and difficult to be open, even with some of the closest people in our lives sometimes. So even with that as a backdrop, it makes it sort of extra rare and beautiful to come together as strangers and be able to be vulnerable with each other. It feels like countercultural in a way that feels really right and resonant. And I think that in and of itself feels like a lesson I'm carrying forward of how do I kind of bring down the mask and welcome community in all sorts of ways as I move through life, because that was so powerful and so good and so cup filling and is not our sort of standard baseline, I think, in the kind of individualist society we live in. It's a space that feels so both carefully curated with so much thought behind it, but also with a sense of low pressure, freedom to show up how you are, freedom to see what emerges. It doesn't feel like there's any strict agenda or end goal from the facilitation. It just feels like there's so much permission to sort of be witness to what is already happening. I think there can be this hierarchy of facilitator up here and participants receiving. And this feels very, very much like the power structure is linear. Everyone has equal power as we sit in the circle, and everyone is showing up with their own vulnerability, even the facilitators, and that creates a really nice sense of community. It sort of feels like a core tenet of why therapy works at all in the way we think of it. It's like the burden really comes from this extra layer of shame that we sort of case around the things that we feel are vulnerable or something we don't even want to look at. I think the heaviness comes from the fact that it's buried deep and there's energy that goes around keeping it there or avoiding it, putting it in the circle. Other people resonate with the things that are buried deep. It's like we are not alone in the things that we struggle with. Just being human is like to have shame and vulnerability or things that we're avoiding. I think you can't go through life without kind of picking up these stones along the way. And I think the reverberation or resonance is in being the thing that you're holding deep, be witnessed and seen not only by yourself, but by someone else or by a circle of people who care about you, and to say, you're okay. Like, not only are you okay, but I connect with you even more for seeing this part that I see is actually beautiful. Towards the end of the group, we were sharing some reflections we had written. And as it went around, I was aware of all of the sort of similar themes that wove through each reflection with their own sort of flavor. And I still found it most difficult to hear the reflection I had written out loud by someone else. I was sort of like cringing at how it sounded, and I was so critical of it. And then I had this process of reflecting about that. Like, why is it that I can appreciate and feel inspired by something everyone else wrote when the themes are so similar, but still when it comes from me and no one else even knows it's coming from me, I have this like inner critic. I came in without expectations about what I wanted to work on, and this is just one of the things that emerged. It's just being open to the journey and seeing what's present for you now. There doesn't need to be a big plan or destination. It's just learning to be present with each other and with ourselves. And I think we can always use more spaces to practice that. I think it's so important for therapists to always be finding time and space to take off their therapist hat and be present with themselves. I find there's like a double benefit of participating. Anytime I can be in a space as a sort of receiver or more of a client or more in the vulnerable seat, not only is that helpful for my own journey through life, but it's also helpful to be reminded of what it feels like to be vulnerable. As a therapist, it's important to keep in mind, what does it feel like to be asked to show up in these ways and to be present with the feelings and to not ever become numb to how difficult that can be for our clients. As a therapist too, you come away with all sorts of interesting tools to think about exercises or meditations. There's a lot of tangible toolkit building that happens. I just feel like I've come away feeling like I've actually made a lot of progress on that journey, that little piece of the journey, and I know that will continue. It's cool to be open to being surprised by what your body, your soul, your subconscious tells you is needing some attention, and the ways that that freedom can manifest in your life going forward. There's just huge reward of being with yourself, kind of a champion for your own essence. And I think that's a huge part of what the group feels like it was about for me, is coming to know your own essence and to be seen and supported in that. And then to be tasked with like protecting and doing right by that essence. Now that you've come closer to know who you are, what do you do with that? And how can you be your most loyal, tender, and protector of that essence? How can you put yourself in spaces that are good for you, or you're seen and supported? How can you move through the world in a way that kind of does right by who you really are? It's excavating the extra layers of shame, which really are like these ideas about who we think we need to be worthy of love or satisfaction or pride. It's all of this ego stuff that like gets in the way from these like core wounds, or these like darker parts that we shy away from. And so part one is like excavating that and coming to know, who am I without this thing? And then to have that like the new you. I like how you guys frame that, through you and new you, and this idea of who am I, what is my identity, and to have that new you be sort of seen and held and celebrated alongside other people that are doing the same thing. And it's such a brave thing to witness in other people too, to feel encouraged that like no matter where you are on your journey, this is the human journey, what we're all sort of called to in this life. I think that's a journey that's most worthwhile together. I think that there's parts of us that are wired to avoid doing that work. It's like evolutionarily, in some ways, we are wired to, even in our bodies, like cringe away from discomfort or anxiety. It's like kind of part of our wiring that we need to understand how this works. It's a very human thing to not want to feel pain. It can feel uncomfortable or scary. But I think as part of that, we can also sort of like overemphasize or build up the fear of how much it's going to hurt or how much pain will be in. And the more that we can practice like getting to know ourselves and sitting with these parts, the more we realize how transformative it is, and how much pain and energy is going into just preserving these parts or avoiding it. So I think kind of trusting in the process and just knowing that it's not actually as scary as maybe part of you fears it's going to be, and that so much movement can happen in a short amount of time. It doesn't need to take 100 therapy sessions or years and years to make any progress or feel like you're evolving or you're able to like build that muscle of being with yourself. In one of the True You groups that I just did, it was 4 weeks, and in 1 month I felt so much had been transformed. And so I think being open to how delightful and easy and fun it can be, and not just fearful of the heaviness. Because in my experience, it wasn't actually heavy, and it wasn't actually painful, even in moments where I felt some pain or felt moved to the point of crying. It was pretty quickly transformed to this like beautiful and light feeling. And it can feel good to feel those feelings. I think we just don't always have the tools ourselves to create those spaces, and it can be hard to know where to start. I think the other thing to note is that you're never asked to bare your soul or talk about things that you're not comfortable with. You can choose how much you want to say. There's always moments of quiet reflection and meditation or other exercises. There's moments of journaling where you're just writing, knowing that you don't need to share what you write. And then there's moments of sharing, and you can sort of decide how much you want to share. And I would encourage folks to think of it that way, that you're never going to have to do something you're not comfortable with. They'll meet you where you're at.